If your pet gets lost, it's likely to wind up at the Animal Foundation. Some pet owners and even employees will tell you that can lead to heartache. I'm 13 Chief Investigator Darcy Spears. I received an unprecedented amount of complaints from people working at the Animal Foundation, describing dangerous conditions and saying the issues they raised to upper management went nowhere. We uncovered a lot in our 6-month investigation into this shelter in crisis. Las Vegas is an animal lover's city, and we have the largest open intake animal shelter in the country, the Animal Foundation. In 2021, criticism of the shelter came to a boiling point with more than a dozen current and former employees, as well as pet owners, reaching out to 13 Investigates, gravely concerned about animal welfare. Of all my investigations over the past year, this one clearly had wide-ranging impact. After I began investigating and talking to sources, the Animal Foundation's CEO abruptly resigned in late summer, a signal that would foreshadow much deeper problems.
When we got him, he looked so adorable.
8-year-old Zainay and 11-year-old Zalea had two best friends.
And they made a little heart with their paws.
Pitbull's Alani.
He's so tiny compared to her.
And Amir.
So he was the man of the house.
There's an entire wall of photos in the living room dedicated to the dogs.
I know some people don't identify with the love and affection animals give, but that dog in particular, both of our dogs, have gotten me and my kids through a lot of difficult times.
On October 11th, a fierce windstorm damaged the doghouse in the Thomas family's backyard, as you can see in their security footage. It also blew down part of a shared fence while Trey was at work. Neighbors called animal control.
Because I've never been in this situation before, and nothing was left on my door in regards to who to contact, where to go, anything of that nature.
She learned the next day that Alani and Amir had been taken to the Animal Foundation.
I began looking on their website. It does say there schedule an appointment and also to email.
So she emailed and then began calling every day.
45-minute hold times just to be sent to a voicemail box that was full, and then it hangs up.
The Animal Foundation asked her to email back with a contact number.
No one called me. No one reached out to me, nothing. So on the 30th, me and my kids showed up.
After waiting nearly an hour, Trey says 2 employees came out.
And they kept referring to our female dog. And I'm like, I inquired about 2 dogs, a boy and a girl. Where is my boy at?
The answer was crushing. Amir had been euthanized on October 15th, a full week before the Animal Foundation answered Trey's initial email.
And taking my kids up there, I had no idea that that was the news that we were going to get. It took everything in me to hold my composure, and I was hysterical. My kids were hysterical and asking how and why you would kill their family member.
This paperwork the Animal Foundation gave Trey lists her dogs as strays, but her security cameras show the neighbor and animal control at her house the day the dogs were taken.
You took them from their home. At the time of pickup, they were on our property. They were in our yard.
The Animal Foundation wouldn't talk to us about Trey's dogs. Trey is still searching for answers. The Animal Foundation listed behavior as the reason for putting Amir down. When Trey asked an animal control sergeant about that,
she told me that both dogs were displaying aggressive behavior upon pickup. My question to her was, what dog wouldn't?
As for why no one at the Animal Foundation got back to her when she first reached out,
all I was told was that due to short of staff is their reason for not responding to me, not returning a phone call, not answering.
The Animal Foundation sent us a statement saying in part that the shelter takes in an average of 25,000 animals each year, and protecting their health and safety is our top priority. Though the nationwide veterinary and labor shortage has impacted our operations, we're taking necessary steps to improve our procedures, and we remain committed to the animals in our care. Trey didn't see that commitment.
Like, we have no dog. I was given a paper that said my dog was in a freezer.
The Thomas family's experience is not an isolated incident. It's one of many stories of frustration we've heard from pet owners regarding the Animal Foundation. As my special series continues, we will chronicle another family's journey as they desperately searched for a lost pet. That coming up tonight at 6. Darcy Spears, 13 Investigates. The Animal Foundation declined our request to talk to Christine Robinson then and every other time we reached out during our investigation. At the time of her resignation announcement, a spokesperson said the shelter was making changes and that wait times had improved. Acknowledging a staffing shortage, they said recruiting was critical, but many told us problems only got worse. We began our investigative series with the perspective of pet owners. If your pet goes missing in the city of Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, or Clark County, odds are it will end up at the foundation. The pet owners we spoke to shared heartbreaking stories of when they tried to reunite with their furry loved ones. Heartache, frustration, and incompetence. Those are words from pet owners who say the Valley's main animal shelter is failing the public.
So Diddy is a rescue cat that we rescued 6 years ago. The moment that we brought him home, he was already at home. It was like he was meant to be with us. He's our kid. He's my kid. It's not just a cat to me and my family.
One October night, while unloading groceries, Bridget Nave propped open the door between the house and the garage. Diddy saw a chance to explore and took it.
We saw him on the camera after we noticed he was gone and he had snuck out.
She canvassed the neighborhood, putting up flyers and posting on social media.
We're a mess. I can't sleep very good. I'm always getting up to go look out the windows, check the cameras.
After repeatedly checking the Animal Foundation's website to see if by chance Diddy had been picked up by animal control,
I saw a picture of what I thought looked exactly like him. Same weight described, everything down to a T. So I tried calling. I left a voicemail. I then emailed immediately.
She kept calling while driving down to the shelter.
When I got down there was only one person working.
The shelter had just opened for the day.
He goes into the back and he's back there for 30 minutes, comes back and says, well, the cat's being prepped for surgery right now to be fixed. And I said, well, my cat's already fixed. So then he goes, well, the cat's a girl, so it's not yours.
She left, but says something didn't feel right. She went back inside and spoke to a different employee.
She told me that she would go back and take a picture of the cat.
Then Bridget says they came back and said no pictures because of surgery preps. They reiterated that the cat was female despite what Bridget saw on the website.
It did say it was a male cat the very first time that I looked at it. After I had gone in there to talk to them, I had been constantly checking this website. I still do. And all of a sudden it was unknown. There was no sex at all anymore.
Fearing a mix-up, she sent her husband back later that afternoon.
He went there at 3 p.m., wasn't seen till 5:45. They told him that the cat was being prepped on the table for surgery, and I knew right then and there that they'd been lying to me the whole time.
When she went back a third time, she says they showed her a completely different cat than the one on the website. She recorded the interaction on her cell phone.
I think it was you said you were going to come back and take a picture, and then said you couldn't because he was on the table for surgery.
Yeah.
The lady on the phone, and that is not even the same cat. That cat isn't. That's not the same cat in the picture. You guys need to admit that you lost or gave my cat away to somebody else.
Each animal brought into the shelter is given a unique ID number. This screenshot with no gender listed is the first one she saw on the website. This one, with the same ID and a different picture, says it's a neutered male, even though they'd been telling her it was female all along. What kind of mistakes are you seeing on those intake cards?
Age is a common one. Whether they're spayed or not, that can sometimes be hard to determine.
Dr. Mindy Roberts recently quit her job in frustration.
I can't do it anymore there.
She was the Animal Foundation's relief veterinarian. 13 Investigates spoke to many current and newly former staffers who say mistakes at the shelter are common.
And sometimes some of those cases get missed. They shouldn't get missed, but due to lack of staffing and just overall poor management, we do what we can with what we have.
No one from shelter leadership would go on camera. They sent a statement saying, in part, the Animal Foundation takes in an average of 25,000 animals each year, and protecting their health and safety is our top priority, though the nationwide veterinary and labor shortage has impacted our operations.
They're very understaffed, I guess, but that doesn't give them the right to not do their jobs either. If they are losing information or, miscommunicating information, that's not okay. These are people's, animals, and they love them.
As for Diddy,
we just want him back. He's our baby. Like, we miss him so much. And I'm not gonna just back down. I'm not gonna let them get away with this.
the Nave family never gave up hope and never stopped searching for Diddy. 3 weeks after we met Bridget, the Animal Foundation sent her an email saying they sometimes return cats to the area where they were found. A few days later, a neighbor reached out after seeing Bridget's post on Nextdoor saying Diddy had just popped up and she'd been feeding him. We are pleased to report that Diddy is finally back home. Darcy Spears, 13 Investigates. The Thomas family's experience is not an isolated incident. It's one of many stories we've heard from Valley pet owners who say heartache, frustration, and incompetence are at the core of their dealings with the shelter, a place they say is failing the public and the animals it's supposed to protect. At no time in my 26-year career have more people come forward to blow the whistle on their employer. We spoke to 17 current and now former Animal Foundation employees at every level: veterinarians and vet techs, admissions, intake, workers, managers, and supervisors. All of them came forward to 13 Investigates after claiming their concerns kept falling on deaf ears about a shelter in crisis.
It's sad. I didn't want it to come to this. I mean, I really enjoyed my job at the Animal Foundation.
Everything that's happened recently has been preventable and not acceptable.
Whether lost, stray, or turned in by their owners, the dogs, cats, and other creatures at the Animal Foundation probably want out. Many workers now feel the same way.
When I first started there, I was impressed. And by the time I left, I was disgusted.
People like Liz Wade, a licensed veterinary technician, are leaving because they say management at the Animal Foundation won't heed warnings about a shelter spiraling out of control.
Acknowledgement, yes. Action, no.
The Animal Foundation is the contracted municipal shelter for the city, county, and North Las Vegas, taking in an average of 25,000 animals a year.
We're the highest volume single intake shelter in the country, and it's just, it's too much.
Dr. Mindy Roberts has been a relief veterinarian off and on for 20 years at the Animal Foundation. Are you able to be appropriately responsive to the conditions of all the animals in there in need of care?
No, there's too many.
These animals depend on us, and as a shelter, we should be providing them with the basic necessities: clean food, clean water, and a clean shelter. And at this point, the Animal Foundation is not even able to provide those three things consistently.
The employees you've heard from so far were all still working at the Animal Foundation when we started investigating this past summer. They documented conditions in photos, internal records, and videos shared with 13 Investigates. They all quit in frustration over the last 2 months, saying they couldn't stand to see the animals suffer anymore and needed to go somewhere they felt they could make a difference. You've documented your concerns to management more than once.
Absolutely, yes. I have sent pictures of black mold I found in a cat's kennel, roaches, maggots in the chickens outside, fly infestations in the rabbit bungalows, just dirty kennels in general, animals that haven't had food or water in over 24 hours.
An animal care manager who resigned in September wrote to leadership about a toxic work environment, lack of training, overwhelming animal death and overworked staff. These schedules we obtained show one person was often responsible for cleaning, feeding, and caring for about 100 animals a day. These former employees offered 13 Investigates specifics, including one case that spawned an ongoing investigation by Metro Police. We'll take you deeper inside the crisis at the Animal Foundation as my investigation continues on 13 Action News at 6. Darcy Spears, 13 Investigates. We'll be back with more of our special investigation of the Animal Foundation after this break. Welcome back to our special investigation of the Animal Foundation, a shelter in crisis. For more on our reporting on the Animal Foundation and all of our investigations, visit ktnv.com/13investigates. That story had a happy ending, but we've learned that's often not the case, so it was time to dig deeper. The private nonprofit Animal Foundation gets nearly $5 million tax dollars a year to provide humane and reasonably appropriate care and shelter to the Valley's lost, stray, and abandoned animals. But at no time in my 26-year career have more people come forward to blow the whistle on a single organization. I spoke with 17 current and former Animal Foundation employees in the course of this investigation, those dedicated workers representing nearly every level, from veterinarians, supervisors, and managers to animal care employees and intake workers. They all wanted to expose a crisis after claiming their concerns fell on deaf ears for far too long. Things are crowded, things are filthy, resulting in the suffering of thousands of animals. That is happening today.
It's happening again.
Dr. Mindy Roberts has been a relief veterinarian off and on for 20 years at the Animal Foundation. She was there in 2007 when a team led by the Humane Society of the United States came to Las Vegas to evaluate the shelter the first time it was in crisis.
A review of records indicates the vast majority of these animals became ill while at the shelter. That's happening again.
She alerted leaders that things were backsliding.
I can't abide letting animals die just because they're in the shelter.
Due to poor conditions and overwhelmed staff.
I tried emailing, to let them know that these things are happening and it's not okay.
It didn't help. She says understaffing leads to problems like you see with this little guy.
Somehow his tail was degloved down to the bone. He sat for 2 days without any pain medications for that.
Others, like licensed vet tech Liz Wade, report the same types of things.
Animals that would sit in kennels with broken limbs for days to a week before we could do anything for them.
The medical team also blames understaffing for the shelter's conditions. Kennels full of feces, dirty bedding left for days, brown water, escaped animals, and a massive outbreak of feline upper respiratory disease.
It's very dangerous. I had the one cat that had come in perfectly healthy. She was okayed by the veterinarian to go to adoptions, and while she sat on the shelter side, not in adoptions, she ended up getting so sick that she was literally dying when the staff brought her to me to look at her, and I had to euthanize her. The amount of animals that we're having to euthanize, it's more than normal, and it just having them suffer, dying in their kennel, in their litter box, that's not right.
In at least one case, Metro took notice and police have an open animal cruelty investigation.
That was something that was kept very hush-hush.
She's talking about what happened to a dog named Martin, who was left outside in the summer heat.
And apparently no one checked on this animal, this dog, and he died a bloody mess because he was cooking outside and trying to get back in, like clawing, basically fighting for his life to get back inside.
Former staffer Nicole Staples says a few days later,
it happened again
to a dog named Bandit.
Why were those bungalows not checked before everyone left for the evening? We did those dogs a huge disservice. They died from our lack of care.
And there's more.
We did have a husky puppy that was thrown in the trash. It was accidental.
It happened when an attendant was cleaning a kennel.
She got tasked with this whole section to clean by herself, and she was going so fast.
The employee is hearing impaired.
And she couldn't hear the puppy screaming from the trash can.
It ended up dying.
And I'm the one that found the puppy, so that was rough.
I have documented all of this, and I have brought it to the attention of my supervisor or the animal care supervisor. I've even brought the attention to the COO and the CEO, Christine Robinson, and just like everything else at the Animal Foundation, it was swept under the rug.
Another wave of recent resignations at the leadership level underscores the rudderless atmosphere at the Animal Foundation. As my investigation continues, we'll look at why there's no quick fix and see what local leaders have to say about what we've uncovered. That continues tomorrow at 6 and 11. Darcy Spears, 13 Investigates. We'll be back with more of our special investigation of the Animal Foundation after this break. Welcome back to our special investigation of the Animal Foundation, a shelter in crisis. For more on our reporting on the Animal Foundation and all of our investigations, visit ktnv.com/13investigates. These former employees offered 13 Investigates specifics, including one case that spawned an investigation by Metro Police. Our exclusive series unraveled problems at many levels, going all the way to the top, with devastating impact on the animals.
I've been working with animals for 10 years, and to see some of the conditions that I saw while working at the Animal Foundation was just absolutely heartbreaking.
And these animals are supposed to come here to be sheltered, to be safe, and they are dying from and getting very sick from neglect, from, I would call it cruelty, because nobody's doing anything about it.
Conditions at the Animal Foundation have been deteriorating rapidly over the last 6 months.
I found an entire family of roaches living in this dog's kennel.
More than a dozen current and now former staffers recently quit after saying their concerns fell on deaf ears at the shelter's leadership level.
I don't know why they aren't listening. All they have to do is walk around the shelter and they can see what's going on.
Amid the most recent outcry, CEO Christine Robinson, who was being paid a $240,000 salary, announced her retirement effective at the end of this year. Her second in command, COO John Coogan, abruptly resigned November 1st, and Dr. Joanna Jared, the shelter's only remaining full-time veterinarian, said she's out as of November 30th. 13 Investigates obtained the email Dr. Jared sent to Animal Control saying, "We are ethically obligated to be transparent about the care we can realistically provide," something that I and other members of the organization do not appear to agree on.
And that says to me that everyone can see that there is a huge problem, and even the higher ups are unable to fix it. And so instead of staying and trying, they're jumping ship with everyone else.
Animal Foundation leadership refused our request for an on-camera interview, instead sending a statement from Chris Robinson that was nearly verbatim from this Facebook video posted on October 25th.
You should be confident that protecting the health and safety of the animals in our care is the Foundation's top priority. The city and county frequently inspect our operations to ensure that we're living up to that commitment.
When we began investigating in June, the city provided records showing their last official inspection was in 2017. After our records request, they began scheduling monthly visits.
Usually on those days, it's all hands on deck cleaning situation. They'll send out an email, make sure your stations are clean, make sure this is deep clean, make sure this is done. And then you're always like, oh, somebody must be coming to the shelter today. We must be having
an unannounced inspection. They know it's coming.
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. In fact, we have email between city and county leaders and the Animal Foundation where they discuss scheduling a site visit. That came after another series of emails between animal control officials confirming quite a few complaints about conditions and operations at the Animal Foundation.
I don't think that they're fully aware of the depth of it.
The city said it would have Animal Control investigate the employees' allegations. The county sent a statement saying, "We agree that there have been some issues at the Animal Foundation. It's our understanding that, like many businesses and organizations across the country, TAF is struggling to maintain adequate staffing levels. There's also a nationwide shortage of veterinarians, which we are feeling the effects of here too. We believe the staffing challenges have caused or exacerbated some of the issues you're hearing about, but that does not lessen their importance. We've expressed our concerns to the Animal Foundation leadership, and they are working to address them. In what could be considered a cruel twist, former staffers say some of the fixes led to even more problems. We'll examine those, plus what could be the future of the Animal Foundation as this exclusive investigation continues tonight at 11. Darcy Spears, 13 Investigates. We'll be back with more of our special investigation of the Animal Foundation after this break. Welcome back to our special investigation of the Animal Foundation, a shelter in crisis. For more on our reporting on the Animal Foundation and all of our investigations, visit ktnv.com/13investigates. Within a month, another wave of resignations at the leadership level underscored the rudderless atmosphere at the Animal Foundation, leaving even more animals to live in inhumane and unsanitary conditions, leading to disease and death. All of that while the overcrowded and understaffed foundation continued to take in private donations and the public's tax dollars. An unprecedented number of employees at the Animal Foundation have reached out to 13 Investigates to outline their long list of complaints. Keep in mind, this is the place your pets will most likely end up if they get lost. Insiders say a shelter claiming it's committed to protecting your pets has instead put many animals in danger. Staff members reached out to their higher-ups to urge improvements.
So the staff we're having to cut corners.
But be careful what you wish for. Former animal care supervisor Vanessa Yoakum says some fixes have caused more problems.
It's heartbreaking.
One example, when the enrichment team was reassigned to help feed and clean.
Which means playgroup stopped, which means the socialization stopped. And there has been so many, I can say at least 5 dogs, I can say in the last 2-3 months that had to have getting put down because we weren't able, no one was able to socialize with them.
Licensed vet tech Liz Wade believes in a shelter, animal care and welfare is everyone's responsibility at all times.
The satisfaction you get from helping the homeless animals that don't have anybody is a feeling that you can't describe. And then you go from this overwhelming feeling of, wow, I'm doing so much good for the community, to, am I helping these animals or am I hurting them because of the conditions of the shelter? And by the time I left, I was 100% convinced we were just hurting these animals and we were not helping them at all.
Last year, the Animal Foundation heavily promoted achieving its Mission Possible 2020, saving the life of every healthy and treatable animal.
It is a myth because that's their way of using the wording to their benefit so that they can have that status.
Former feline programs assistant Nicole Staples.
They want to have this perception that they're doing this great thing.
Former relief vet Dr. Mindy Roberts says animals who came in healthy and treatable became unhealthy and untreatable.
With the dogs, I think it's just more the overcrowding. A lot of them are getting behavioral issues because they stay in the kennels too long.
Euthanizing animals for medical or behavioral reasons enabled the Animal Foundation to meet its goal.
We have available cats that are sitting, available dogs. It's just they're not being transferred over when their time is up, and it's a lack of space.
The final straw for Dr. Roberts came with one realization.
Spaying and neutering is not getting done for all the adoptions that are going out.
Government contracts say the shelter must spay or neuter every cat or dog they transfer or adopt unless health conditions preclude. The insiders we spoke to say it's past time for local leaders in the shelter to reevaluate their agreements. Is having the contracts with the city and the county and North Las Vegas, is that no longer a viable or sustainable business model?
No, it's not viable, not for the Animal Foundation at this time, because they're in over their heads with me with the amount of animals they're taking in.
When you're large, the
fluctuations of a normal shelter quickly get magnified.
Dr. Kate Hurley at the Corrett Shelter Medicine Program at the University of California, Davis inspected the Animal Foundation in 2007, the first time the shelter was in crisis. She's putting together an online boot camp to help the Animal Foundation and other large shelters across the U.S.
It's about getting really tight on priorities and making sure that the work undertaken by the shelter is aligned with what they can actually handle.
That could mean scaling back.
It's time to renegotiate that contract, even if it means like, well, you'll compensate us less this year because we are able to do less.
And getting back to focusing on the key clients, the animals, if it's not too late.
In the beginning of this crisis, I think that it was still maybe salvageable, but at this point, I do think that the Animal Foundation should be shut down.
The private nonprofit Animal Foundation receives about $4.8 million tax dollars a year. Our government contracts require them to provide humane and reasonably appropriate care and shelter. As our investigation unfolded, City Councilwoman Victoria Seaman met with the city manager and staff to demand a full investigation and audit. We'll speak with her and other local leaders as my series continues in the coming weeks. Darcy Spears, 13 Investigates. In what could be considered a cruel twist, former staffers say some of the fixes led to even more problems. Loss of staff led to loss of services, and one particularly crucial failure to uphold the most basic principle of community animal care. We'll be back with more of our special investigation of the Animal Foundation after this break. Welcome back to our special investigation of the Animal Foundation, a shelter in crisis. For more on our reporting on the Animal Foundation and all of our investigations, visit ktnv.com/13investigates. Soon after the first of these investigative reports exposed the conditions at the Animal Foundation, local leaders were angry, to say the least, and demanding answers. After all, nearly $5 million taxpayer dollars are funneled to the foundation, and it's under contract to provide humane and reasonably appropriate care and shelter. That's why City Councilwoman Victoria Seaman demanded a full investigation and audit to uncover problems hidden from herself and other leaders.
My little girl, Suki, is 13 years old, and she's a rescue.
North Las Vegas Mayor Pro Tem Richard Churchio was a dog man long before he became a councilman. What he saw at the Animal Foundation during a 2013 investigation shook him.
When I saw those animals in the cages looking back at me, if I think about it too much, I start to get teary-eyed.
For Las Vegas City Councilwoman Victoria Seaman,
it's heartbreaking.
And infuriating.
And I'm appalled, I'm shocked, and it is my responsibility as an elected official to get answers and to make sure that we take care of those animals at the shelter.
Our investigation exposed overwhelmed, understaffed, and unsanitary conditions where employees say animals are needlessly suffering and dying. You've documented your concerns to management more than once.
Absolutely, yes. I have sent pictures of black mold I found in a cat's kennel, roaches, maggots in the chickens outside, fly infestations in the rabbit bungalows, just dirty kennels in general, animals that haven't had food or water in over 24 hours. I have documented all of this, and I have brought it to the attention of my supervisor or the animal care supervisor. I've even brought the attention to the COO and the CEO, Christine Robinson, and just like everything else at the Animal Foundation, it was swept under the rug and not brought to anyone's attention.
Councilman Churchio took a tour of the Animal Foundation when we started asking questions about it.
And it was horrific. And the thing that stuck with me most was when we went into the room where they keep the euthanized animals, that you could actually smell the bodies in the freezer. And I still have that smell in my nose.
Over the course of our 6-month investigation, CEO Christine Robinson announced her retirement effective at the end of this month. And the COO and only remaining full-time veterinarian recently quit, as did numerous other employees.
Everybody seems to be jumping ship. So from the top to the bottom, there is no organizational management whatsoever, and we have to do something.
The shelter's marketing director, Darcy Spears, is currently in charge.
He's damage control, okay? That's all he's doing. He's just damage control. And he's coming up with a reason that everything is happening to them, that they're not part of the problem.
Churchio believes the problem is of the foundation's own making, starting with the pay for animal care staff.
For about $10 an hour. And that's all they get paid. That's in comparison to what the CEO makes over there of $240,000 plus benefits. I don't know how, be quite frank with you, how people could sleep at night knowing that they've enabled in some fashion or another this thing to grow to the proportion that it is right now.
The Animal Foundation continues to deny all our requests for on-camera interviews. The foundation tells 13 Investigates the shelter is working quickly to improve the treatment and care of lost and abandoned animals by filling open positions, implementing new cleaning protocols, and utilizing community partners to help treat injured animals as they recruit more veterinarians.
I don't buy it. And I think at this point, they've had problems for a long time, from what I'm understanding with your report. Why didn't they come to the city? Why didn't they go to North Las Vegas or the county for help?
They never said, we're in crisis, we're losing people.
Never. Never.
Why do you think?
We're going to get to the bottom of it, Darcy.
They get approximately $5 million a year between the 3 jurisdictions, meaning Las Vegas, the county, and ourselves, which is taxpayer money, to do the right thing. And it's not an easy job. It's definitely not an easy job. But you need to reach out and communicate with us if you're having a problem. And that's not happening.
Of particular concern to both council members is the lack of oversight. As we exposed, City Animal Control had not done routine inspections at the shelter since 2017 and only started scheduling visits this summer after we began investigating. So what's wrong with that picture?
Everything. And I've asked for a full investigation and a full audit, and I won't rest until we get one.
During our initial investigation, the Animal Foundation claimed we are complying with our contracts. What do you make of their claim that they're in no way violating any provisions of their contract?
I think they're living on another planet. We're not looking to harm TAF. We just want them to do their job. Simple as that. And if they can't do their job, they need to let us know and get out of the way.
At Wednesday's City Council meeting, Councilwoman Seaman said it's time for action.
I feel like we may require a third party to do an independent investigation of the operations at the foundation, in addition to our own investigation, and also modifying our agreement with the foundation to include representation by the city on their board of directors.
The foundation invited national expert Dr. Kate Hurley of the UC Davis Shelter Medicine Program to assess shelter conditions. Dr. Hurley led an inspection team in 2007 when the Animal Foundation was previously in crisis.
I want that shelter to be scared of backsliding to 2007. I want them to be permanently scared of backsliding to 2007.
So what can you do to help? The Animal Foundation says the sheer number of lost and abandoned animals in our community stretches their resources. If you find an animal that's obviously wandered away from home in your neighborhood, they ask that you try to locate its owner rather than bringing it here to the shelter.
But if they're not dangerous and bringing it in is like, it's going to put the whole system in jeopardy. Like, let's not make that bad choice of like, either you got to euthanize for space or you're going to have disease run rampant in the facility.
Also, make sure your pets are tagged and have a registered microchip so they can be quickly returned to you if they get lost. Also, if you need to give up your pet, try to rehome it first before surrendering it to the animal shelter. The Animal Foundation's full statement is on our website at ktnv.com. We will be keeping close tabs on the city's investigation and audit as we continue to report on everyone's efforts to improve conditions here at the shelter. Darcy Spears, 13 Investigates. We'll be keeping close tabs on the city's investigation as we continue to report on everyone's efforts to improve conditions at the shelter. Thank you for watching our investigation of the Animal Foundation. If you missed any part of this special, just hit the back button on your remote and scroll down until you see KTNV Digital Exclusives. There you'll find this special report and all of our dedicated streaming content. Stay tuned for more from 13 Action News after the break, and check us out anytime here on KTNV Streaming, Las Vegas News on your time.